Captain Jackson Reed stepped onto the burning sands of Zephyr Prime's grand arena, his boots sinking slightly into the crimson dust that had witnessed countless battles over the centuries. Twin suns blazed overhead, casting harsh shadows across. The massive Colosseum carved from black volcanic stone. Thousands of Zephyrian warriors filled the tiered seats, their elongated forms draped in flowing ceremonial robes, their golden eyes fixed intently on the lone human who dared enter their sacred proving grounds. The diplomatic mission had gone sideways faster than a meteor through atmosphere. What should have been a simple trade negotiation had devolved into questions of human worthiness, strength, and honor. The Zephyrian High Council had listened politely to Earth's proposals for mineral rights and technological exchange. Their silence spoke volumes. They saw humans as weak, small, unworthy of true partnership with their warrior culture. That was when she had risen from her seat. General Vextera. Thorne stood 9 feet tall, her muscular frame wrapped in form-fitting armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. Her skin held the distinctive deep blue tint of her people, marked with intricate silver tattoos that traced the length of her powerful arms. Long white hair flowed down her back like liquid starlight, contrasting sharply with her fierce amber eyes. She was beautiful in the way that storms were beautiful, dangerous, and captivating in equal measure. "You speak of partnership." Her voice had boomed across the council chamber, but words are wind. If humanity seeks alliance with the Zephyrian Empire, let them prove their worth in the ancient way. Let their representative face the trial of crimson honor. The other council members had stirred with interest. The trial was rarely invoked, a holdover from their warlike past when disputes were settled through combat rather than diplomacy. Jackson had felt the weight of his mission, the hopes of Earth's expanding colonies, settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. "I accept," he had said, his voice steady despite the racing of his heart. Now, as he stood in the arena's center, Jackson wondered if his pride had doomed humanity's chance at this crucial alliance. The Zephyrians were a warrior race, bred for combat across generations. Their average soldier stood 8 feet tall, with strength that could crush steel. Their generals, like Vextera, were living weapons honed by decades of battlefield experience. Horn sounded, its deep note echoing off the stone walls. The crowd fell silent as General Vextera emerged from the opposite entrance. She had shed her ceremonial armor for combat gear, sleek and practical, that enhanced rather than concealed her impressive physique. In her hands, she carried a curved blade that seemed to drink in the sunlight, its edge gleaming with deadly promise. Jackson drew his own weapon, a plasma sword gifted by Earth's military scientists. It hummed to life with a blue glow, advanced technology that he hoped might even the odds against his towering opponent. He had trained for this moment, spending months preparing for the possibility of combat, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of facing Vextera in battle. Moved with fluid grace, covering the distance between them in seconds. Her first strike came like lightning, a diagonal slash that would have taken his head if he hadn't rolled aside. The crowd roared its approval as she pressed her attack, her blade singing through the air in a deadly dance of steel. Jackson found himself giving ground, his smaller stature forcing him to rely on speed and agility rather than strength. He ducked under a horizontal swing, spun away from a thrusting strike, parried desperately as she rained blows down upon him. Each impact sent shockwaves through his arms, reminding him of the vast difference in their physical capabilities. But he had advantages too. Human reflexes honed by millennia of evolution allowed him to react with split-second timing. His plasma blade could cut through her weapon if he could land a solid hit. Most importantly, he fought with the desperation of a man who carried the hopes of his entire species. The battle raged across the arena floor. Vextera fought with the confidence of a warrior who had never known defeat, her movements economical and precise. Yet as the minutes passed, Jackson began to notice patterns in her attacks, weaknesses born of overconfidence. She favored her right side, left herself open after particularly aggressive strikes. He began to exploit these openings, landing glancing blows that drew thin lines of blue blood across her skin. The crowd's roar changed pitch, surprise replacing certainty. No human had ever lasted this long against one of their generals. Some began to cheer for the small warrior who refused to yield, who fought with a tenacity that spoke to something primal in their warrior hearts. Vextara's eyes blazed with something that might have been respect as she renewed her assault. Her blade work became more complex, incorporating spinning attacks and feints that tested the limits of Jackson's defensive skills. Sweat poured down his face, his breathing grew labored, but he refused to surrender. Then she made a mistake, overextending. On a powerful downward strike, she left herself vulnerable for a heartbeat. Jackson moved without thinking, his plasma blade sweeping up in a perfect arc that would have opened her throat. Vextara stared at him in shock, understanding dawning in her amber eyes. He could have killed her, could have claimed victory. In the traditional way, instead he had shown mercy, had chosen to spare her life, even in the heat of combat. Why? She whispered, lowering her own weapon. Because Jackson said, his voice carrying across the silent arena, true strength isn't measured by how much damage you can inflict, but by how much you choose not to inflict when you have the power to do so. The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Zephyrians believed about warfare and honor. Some of the crowd began to murmur, debating among themselves. Others remained silent, processing this display of what humans called mercy. Vextara studied his face, searching for deception or weakness, finding neither. Slowly, she raised her blade in the traditional salute of a warrior acknowledging a worthy opponent. "The trial is not yet complete," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the arena. "There are 3 tests in the Crimson Honor: combat, endurance, and wisdom. You have shown skill in the first and wisdom in your restraint. The second test begins at sunset." As the crowd began to disperse, chattering excitedly about what they had witnessed, Vextara approached Jackson. Up close, he could see the intelligence in her eyes, the sharp mind that lurked behind her warrior's exterior.
"You fight well for such."
"A small creature," she said, and there was no mockery in her tone. "But the endurance trial will test more than your blade work. Are you prepared for what comes next?" Jackson met her gaze steadily, ignoring the way his heart raced at her proximity. "I'll face whatever challenge you set before me. My people are counting on me." Something flickered in her expression, too quick to identify. "Yes," she said softly, "they are." "Rest well, Captain Jackson Reed. You will need your strength for what awaits you in the trial of endurance." As she walked away, her white hair streaming behind her like a banner, Jackson found himself watching the sway of her hips, the powerful grace of her movements. He shook his head, forcing himself to focus on the task ahead. The attraction he felt was dangerous, a distraction he couldn't afford. Too much depended on his success. But as night fell over Zephyr Prime, as he prepared for the second trial that would test his limits in ways he couldn't yet imagine, Jackson couldn't shake the memory of those amber eyes, or the way something had sparked between them in that moment when mercy had triumphed over violence. The real trial, he suspected, was only just beginning. The endurance trial began in the depths of the Crimson Canyons, where ancient lava flows had carved a labyrinth of tunnels and caverns beneath Zephyr Prime's surface. Jackson descended into the earth alongside Vextara. Their relationship shifted from adversaries to something more complex, more dangerous. "The trial is simple in concept," she explained as they made their way through the first chamber, her voice echoing off the smooth-worn walls. "We must reach the sanctuary of trials together, overcoming whatever obstacles the canyon presents. But understand this, human eye will not coddle you. If you fall behind, if you cannot keep pace, you will be left behind." The first challenge came in the form of a chasm that stretched across their path, its depths lost in shadow. A series of stone pillars rose from the darkness, each one positioned just far enough apart to require a running leap. For Vextara, with her long legs and powerful muscles, the jumps were manageable. For Jackson, they represented a test of faith and physics. "You go first," he he said, studying the spacing between the pillars. I need to see the timing. She leaped across the first gap with casual grace, her landing sending a shower of loose stones into the abyss. The second jump followed, then the third, until she stood on the far side of the chasm. Your turn, little warrior, she called back, her tone carrying a hint of challenge. Jackson took a running start, launching himself across the first gap with everything he had. His feet hit the pillar's edge, and for a terrifying moment he teetered. On the brink before finding his balance, the second jump was worse, the pillar narrower, the distance greater. He barely made it, his chest slamming into the stone as his hands scrambled for purchase. Interesting technique, Vextera observed, watching him struggle. Most Zephyrians would have chosen a different approach. Most Zephyrians are 9 feet tall, Jackson replied, preparing for the final jump. This one was the worst yet, the pillar. Little more than a spike of rock jutting from the chasm wall. He took 3 quick steps and leaped, his arms windmilling as he fought to maintain balance. He wasn't going to make it. Vextera moved without hesitation, her hand shooting out to grab his wrist as he fell short of the landing. Her strength was incredible, stopping his fall and hauling him up onto solid ground with one fluid motion. For a moment they stood close together, his chest pressed against hers, her alien scent filling his nostrils. Why did you help me? He asked, looking up into her amber eyes. You said you wouldn't coddle me. I said I wouldn't coddle you, she replied, her voice softer than before. I said nothing about preventing you from completing the trial through your own determination. You made that jump, Jackson read. I merely ensured you survived it. The use of his first name sent a strange warmth through his chest. They stood like that for a heartbeat longer than necessary before she stepped back, her expression carefully neutral. The trials continued deeper into the canyon system. They faced chambers filled with poisonous gas that required them to hold their breath for minutes at a time. Their bodies pressed close together as they shared the same air pocket. They navigated passages where the walls closed in, forcing them to work together to wedge the stones apart with their combined strength. In one particularly challenging chamber, encountered a puzzle that required 2 people to solve. Ancient Zephyrian glyphs covered the walls, telling the story of lovers who had been separated by war. Only by standing in specific positions, by moving in harmony with each other, could they unlock the passage forward. It's a dance, Vextara realized, studying the wall carvings. A courtship ritual from the old times. You must move as one, match each other's steps perfectly. She demonstrated the first sequence, her movements flowing and graceful. Jackson tried to mirror her, stumbling at first as he struggled to match her longer stride. She placed her hands on his shoulders, guiding him through the motions. Feel the rhythm, she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. Don't think, just move with me. Gradually, they found their synchronization. Dance became a conversation between their bodies, a wordless communication that transcended the barriers of species and culture. When they completed the final sequence, the passage opened with a grinding of ancient stone, but neither of them moved to continue. That was, Jackson began, then trailed off, unsure how to finish the sentence. Unexpected, Vextera supplied, her own voice slightly breathless. The old ways have power. Even now, even between species so different. They reached the sanctuary of trials as the first moon rose above the canyon walls. The chamber was circular, carved from pure white stone and lit by phosphorescent crystals that cast everything in a soft, ethereal glow. At its center sat a pool of water so clear it seemed like liquid light. The final test, Vextara announced, though her formal tone couldn't quite hide the tension in her voice. We must remain in the sanctuary together until dawn, facing whatever visions the sacred pool reveals. Some who enter never leave unchanged. As they settled beside the pool, Jackson found himself studying Vextera's profile in the crystal light. Her features were sharp, alien, but undeniably beautiful. The silver tattoos on her skin seemed to glow with their own inner light, tracing patterns that spoke of battles won and honors earned. Tell me about your people, he said quietly. Not the official history, the real story. "What is it like to be Zephyrian?" She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "We are born to war," she said simply. "From the moment we can walk, we are taught to fight, to conquer, to never show weakness. Our entire culture is built around strength, around the belief that might makes right." She paused, her eyes reflecting the pool's glow. "But watching you in the arena today, seeing your mercy, your restraint, it made me question things I have never questioned before, such as whether true strength might lie not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to destroy when destruction would be easy." She turned to look at him directly. "Your people fascinate me, Jackson Reed. You are small, fragile by our standards, yet you traveled across the stars to face me in combat. You showed mercy when you could have claimed victory. What drives such courage?" Jackson considered his answer carefully. "Love," he said finally. "Love for our families, our friends, our species. We fight not because we enjoy battle, but because we want to protect what we care about. Sometimes that means extending a hand in friendship instead of raising a sword in anger." The pool began to glow brighter, its surface rippling, though no wind disturbed the chamber. Images formed in the water, visions that showed possible futures. They saw worlds at war, species destroying each other in endless cycles of violence. They saw cooperation, trade, the sharing of knowledge and culture that could benefit all. Most disturbing of all, they saw themselves locked in an embrace that spoke of passion and love, transcending the boundaries of their species. The vision was so vivid, so real, that Jackson could almost feel Vextara's skin against his, could almost taste her lips. "The pool shows what might be," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the swirling images. "Not what will be, but what could be, if we have the courage to reach for it." The vision faded, leaving them alone in the gentle crystal light. Dawn was still hours away, but the weight of what they had seen hung between them like a challenge. Jackson said softly, reaching out to touch her face. She didn't pull away, instead leaning into his touch with a sigh that seemed to come from her very soul. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "People would not understand. Yours would not approve. We are from different worlds, different species, but we're here now," he replied, moving closer to her. "In this moment, in this place, we're just two beings who have found something rare and precious. Isn't that worth the risk?" She answered. Not with words, but with action, her lips meeting his in a kiss that tasted of starlight and promise. Her skin was warm beneath his hands, her body strong and yielding at the same time. They made love in the sanctuary of ancient trials, their bodies moving together with the same harmony they had found in the dance, creating their own ritual of connection and desire. As dawn broke over the canyon walls, painting the white stone chamber in shades of gold and crimson, they lay entwined beside the sacred pool. The endurance trial was complete, but their real test was only beginning. "What happens now?" Jackson asked, tracing the silver patterns on her arm. "Now," Vextara said, her voice heavy with both satisfaction and worry, "we face the consequences of what we have chosen. My people will demand answers. Your people will question your judgment. But I no longer care what they think." She sat up, her long hair falling like a curtain around them. "You have passed the trials, Jackson Reed. Combat, endurance, and wisdom. By the ancient laws, you have earned the right to alliance with my people. But more than that, you have earned something I thought I would never give to anyone, my heart." And yet, words hung between them like a promise and a threat. Love had conquered the barriers between their species. But the real battle was yet to come. The return to the surface brought reality crashing down upon them like a meteor strike. News of their night in the sanctuary had spread through the Zephyrian capital with the speed of quantum transmission. The High Council was in emergency session, their voices raised in heated argument that could be heard through the council chamber's massive doors. Jackson stood in the antechamber, still wearing his dust-stained clothes from the trials, while Vextara paced like a caged predator. Her informal armor had been replaced by full ceremonial regalia, the silver and obsidian plates marking her rank as a general of the Empire. Yet despite the imposing display, He could see the tension in her shoulders, the worry in her amber eyes. "They will demand answers," she said for the third time, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Questions about the trials, about what transpired in the sanctuary. Some of them suspect. More than they should." "Let them suspect," Jackson replied, stepping into her path and forcing her to stop pacing. "What happened between us was real, Vextera. Was beautiful and powerful and right. I won't apologize for it, and neither should you." She looked down at him, her expression caught between admiration and exasperation. "You still don't understand the forces we've unleashed. There are factions within the Council who have opposed any alliance with humanity from the beginning. They will use our connection as evidence that you have somehow corrupted me, weakened my judgment. Then we show them they're wrong," Jackson said simply. "We show them that what we've found makes us stronger, not weaker." Before she could respond, the council chamber doors swung open with a grinding of ancient hinges. A younger Zephyrian warrior, his blue skin marked with the geometric tattoos of a messenger, bowed deeply to Vextera. "General, the High Council demands your immediate presence. Both you and the human are to appear before them to answer for your conduct during the trials." Vextera's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Tell them we come." The council chamber was a vast circular space carved from the same black volcanic stone as the arena. 12 seats rose in tiers around the central floor, each occupied by one of the Empire's most powerful leaders. Their faces were masks of stern judgment, their eyes fixed upon the human who had dared to walk among them as an equal led at the head. Of the council sat High Executor Thane, an ancient Zephyrian whose skin bore the white scars of 100 battles. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of absolute authority. "General Vextera Thorn, you stand accused of conduct unbecoming an officer of the Empire. It is alleged that during the sacred trials you violated the sanctity of the ancient sanctuary by engaging in inappropriate relations with this alien creature." The words hung in the air like an accusation and a slap. Jackson felt anger flare in his chest, but Vextera's hand on his arm kept him silent. "I stand before this council with honor intact," she replied, her voice ringing clear and strong. "I conducted the trials according to the ancient laws. The human proved himself worthy in combat, endurance, and wisdom. What transpired in the sanctuary was between two consenting adults who found connection in a place where such connections are meant to be forged." Counselor Drex, a heavy-set warrior with arms like tree trunks, leaned forward in his seat. "You dare claim that rutting with this soft-skinned weakling, was part of the trials?" The insult ignited something primal in Jackson's chest. Forward, his voice carrying across the chamber with surprising force. "I may be soft-skinned compared to your people, Counselor, but I am not weak. I faced your general in single combat and earned her respect. I navigated your trials and proved my worth. If you question my strength, I invite you to test it personally." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. No human had ever spoken to the High Council with such boldness. Several of the counselors reached for their weapons, while others merely stared in astonishment. High Executor Thane raised a hand, and the tension in the room diffused slightly. "You have courage, human. Perhaps too much for your own good. But courage alone does not make you worthy of alliance with the Zephyrian Empire." "Then what does?" Jackson demanded. "I've passed your trials. I've proven myself in combat and endurance and wisdom. What more do you require?" "Proof that your people can truly stand as equals beside ours," Thane replied. "Proof that this alliance you seek is not merely a desperate attempt by a weaker species to shelter behind our strength." Before Jackson could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the capital. The chamber's communication system crackled to life with urgent reports from the orbital defense stations. "High Executor, we have multiple contacts approaching the system. Configuration unknown, but they're not responding to standard hails." Thane's expression hardened. "How many ships?" "No, 15 vessels. They're moving in attack formation." The council erupted in urgent discussion as tactical displays materialized in the chamber's center. The approaching fleet was unlike anything in the Zephorian database's sleek, angular ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Void Hunters, Vextera breathed, her face pale with recognition. They've finally come for us. Jackson had heard whispers of the Void Hunters during his intelligence briefings. A mysterious species that emerged from the depths of space to raid and pillage before vanishing back into the darkness. They had been raiding Zephyrian colonies for months, but never in such numbers. Our fleet is scattered, Counselor Drex reported, studying the tactical display. Most of our ships are on patrol or stationed at the outer colonies. We have perhaps 6 vessels in system, and only 3 of them are combat-ready. Then we evacuate, another counselor suggested. Fall back to the secondary strongholds and regroup. No. The word came from Vextera, her voice cutting through the debate like a blade. We stand and fight. This is our home, our heart. If we run now, they will pursue us to the ends of the galaxy. With what forces? Drex demanded. You're outnumbered 3-1, and our ships are outmanned. It was then that Jackson spoke, his voice quiet but carrying clearly through the chamber. You have one advantage they don't expect. You have humanity. All eyes turned to him as he activated his risk communicator. Captain Reed to Earth's Fleet Command. Priority Alpha. We have a situation that requires immediate assistance. The response came within seconds, crisp and professional. This is Admiral Chen, Captain. What's your status? We're about to be attacked by a superior force. I'm requesting immediate military assistance under the Mutual Defense Protocol. A pause. Captain, we don't have a mutual defense agreement with the Zephyrians? We do now, Jackson replied, looking directly at High Executor Thane. If the Council accepts our alliance, humanity will stand with Zephyr Prime. Admiral, I have 12 human starships in system running silent in the asteroid. Belth, they've been waiting for my signal. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Jackson had anticipated this moment, and prepared for the possibility that the alliance negotiations might require a demonstration of human capability. High Executor. Thane studied him with new respect. You planned this. I planned for contingencies, Jackson corrected, including the possibility that your people might need to see human strength in action before accepting us as allies. The tactical display updated as 12 new contacts appeared on the screen, sleek human vessels emerging from their hiding places among the asteroids. They were smaller than the Zephyrian ships, but their advanced technology and superior maneuverability made them formidable opponents. The odds are more even now, Vextara observed, studying the display. But we'll need perfect coordination between our forces to have any chance of victory. Then we fight together, Jackson said, turning to address the entire council. Human and Zephyrian, united against a common enemy. Let this be the first battle of our alliance. High Executor Thane rose from his seat, his ancient eyes blazing, with the fire of a warrior who had found his calling once again. The Council recognizes the alliance between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. General Thorne, you will command our forces in conjunction with the human fleet. Show these Void Hunters what happens when they threaten our world. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. In the depths of space above Zephyr Prime, human and Zephyrian ships fought side by side with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Jackson commanded the human squadron from the bridge of the destroyer Defiance, while Vextara led the Zephyrian forces from her flagship. Their tactics complemented each other perfectly. The Zephyrians' brute force and heavy weapons created openings that the humans exploited with precision strikes and superior maneuverability. When human ships found themselves overwhelmed, Zephyrian vessels moved to support them with devastating firepower. The Void Hunters, accustomed to facing divided enemies, found themselves outmatched by the unexpected cooperation. One by one, their dark ships were destroyed or driven from the system. The survivors retreated into the depths of space, carrying with them the news that Zephyr Prime was no longer alone. As the last enemy vessel vanished into hyperspace, Jackson found himself standing on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching Zephyr Prime's twin moons rise over the planet's horizon. Vextara stood beside him, her hand entwined with his, their differences in size and species seeming insignificant in the face of what they had accomplished together. The Council will want to formalize the alliance, she said quietly. There will be ceremonies, treaties, political negotiations that could take years to complete, and us, Jackson asked, squeezing her hand gently. What happens to us in all of this? She turned to face him, her amber eyes reflecting the starlight streaming through the viewport. I have been thinking about that. There is an old Zephyrian tradition, older than the Empire itself, when two warriors prove themselves in battle together, when they show that their bond makes them stronger than the sum of their parts. They can be recognized as partners, not just in war, but in all things. Partners, Jackson repeated, tasting the word. I like the sound of that. It would not be easy, she warned. There will be those on both sides who question our choice, who see our union as unnatural or wrong. We would face challenges that neither of our species has ever encountered before. Jackson smiled, reaching up to cup her face in his hands. Then we'll face them together. After all, we've already proven that love can conquer the barriers between worlds. What's a few more obstacles? She laughed, a sound like silver bells in a crystal cave, and bent down to kiss him. In that moment, surrounded by the vast expanse of space and the infinite possibilities of the future, they knew that they had found something worth fighting for, worth living for, worth crossing the gulfs between stars to protect. The alliance between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire would endure for centuries, bringing peace and prosperity to dozens of worlds. But at its heart, it was built on something simpler and more powerful than any treaty or trade agreement. It was built on love. 6 months later, Jackson and Vextera stood together on a balcony overlooking the capital city of Zephyr Prime. The ceremony had been beautiful, a blending of human and Zephyrian traditions that created something entirely new. Representatives from dozens of worlds had attended, witnessing the union that had become a symbol of cooperation between species. No regrets? Vextara asked, her arm wrapped around his waist as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Only one, Jackson replied, looking up at his wife with eyes full of love and mischief. I regret that it took a potential war to bring us together. Think of all the time we wasted not knowing each other. She laughed, pulling him closer. Then we'll have to make up for lost time. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they went inside to their home, their future, their love that had indeed conquered all worlds. And in the depths of space, human and Zephyrian ships continued their joint patrols. Guardians of a peace built on the foundation of two hearts that had dared to beat as one.